warm welcome to everyone who is joining in. We are celebrating the International Coaching Week. So we have a whole week of speakers coming in, and we're going to have conversations around spirituality and its various facets. So we'll take a minute to welcome all the people who have signed up today and are here on the call. Lovely to meet you all. A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. A pleasure to have you all on this session. I'll take a minute to just recognize people who are coming in. There's Bob from USA, Maishali from USA, Megan from Washington, and Dawn from London, Komal from Canada, Neil from Mumbai, India, Anjali from Hong Kong. So welcome everyone to the first webinar of the International Coaching Week that Coacharya is hosting. We want to kickstart today with a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Lisa Miller. I can't say how happy I am to see you here, and what an honor it is to welcome you to this webinar and have this conversation. Yeah. So before we begin, I'd like to just give some introduction to Dr. Lisa Miller and her work. She is a tenured full professor at Columbia University, Teachers College in Clinical Psychology program, and she's a founder of Spirituality Mind Body Institute. She's author of many books. Two of them, which particularly come to mind, is that of The Spiritual Child and The Awakened Brain. So we will make some reference to that as well. She has in many ways pioneered integrated treatment in wellness using spirituality. So spirituality has been integrated into the wellness programs and treatment at hospitals and wherever, she's been able to bring in spirituality and wellness. So Dr. Miller, a very warm welcome. I'd like to just sort of start off. Before we started, we talked about your visit to India. So let's talk about what was it like? Because it's very recent, it's right on top of your mind.
Oh, I had the most beautiful, meaningful journey through India just within the month. And I was struck that, in India, there are people of so many faith traditions, our beautiful world, religious faith traditions, and people express in the most beautiful, open way their own religious tradition and get along so harmoniously. There's, thousands of years of tradition of harmonious getting along because of, I think, lived, shared, relational spiritual values that, my creed says this and his creed says that and her creed says this, and deep within all creeds is a love of neighbor, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And people live that way. They are careful in the streets of one another. They are courteous. They are extremely polite. So there's a sense that how we treat each other really matters, and how we treat each other is a spiritual event.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Lisa. And, oftentimes this word spirituality in itself brings up many connotations and meanings, and some of us struggle to really understand what that is. So you've been able to explore this within a scientific lens. So tell us a little bit about how should we understand this word spirituality?
Well, I think to really get along with one another, as I saw in India, we need more than what people often call the positive character strengths. We need more than, basic commitment or basic forgiveness. We need a deeper resource deep within ourselves. And this deep resource, it turns out, is within every single one of us. It is our natural, innate spirituality, the capacity to know in the deepest way that each of us is a sacred being, that there is a source of life in us, through us, and around us that is sacred. And whatever one's name might be, God, Hashem, Jesus, the universe, whatever one's name of this deep ultimate source is, we're talking about the same eternal deep source. So, to your point, through the lens of science, and we have many good lenses, we have twin studies, epidemiological studies, we have MRI, brain studies. And when we use our lens of science, there are three things that we know. The first is that our beautiful faith traditions, whether I am Hindu or Muslim or Catholic or Christian, our beautiful faith traditions are a gift of our parents and grandparents, our community. They are environmentally transmitted. But spirituality is innate. And even more precisely, what do we mean by spirituality? Well, science can identify threads of lived human spiritual life. We don't define the cosmos, we don't define spirituality, but science can identify ways in which humans are endowed and can cultivate innate natural spirituality. And those two dimensions of innate lived spirituality are the capacity to be in a relationship with a transcendent presence and force, whether, again, we call that God, Hashem, Allah, Spirit, the universe, Vishnu, whatever the term may be. This capacity in us to be in relationship to a transcendent presence that is loving and good, and two, to feel that great transcendent presence in our love for one another, sisters and brothers and fellow living beings, cows and air and sun, all on earth. Transcendent relational spirituality and imminent relational spirituality. Both are forms of human innate perception. And how do we know that? We know that through a twin study. We look at twins raised together, twins raised apart, and factor out commonality in twins as a function of shared genes and environment. Spirituality, and in particular, our awakened awareness through which we have both forms of relational spirituality, is 1/3 innate. Okay, that means it's in us all. But it is 2/3 environmentally formed, which means when we're young, our parents and grandparents, and as we get older, the company we choose to keep outwardly, and the inner environment, our meditation, our service and right action, our prayer, both forms of environment shape our natural spiritual awareness. Twin studies show that. The second extremely important piece of evidence is that MRI studies that show the brain both structurally and functionally reveal that there is a deep seat, a neural docking station, circuits in our brain that sustain our awareness of relational spirituality, that are our natural awakened brain. And so my book, The Awakened Brain, was on the imperative of cultivating this natural neural seat. We're born with the ability to see and hear and speak. But if we don't learn a language, we never speak. And if we don't go outside and see the light, we never sharpen our eyes. We must cultivate the natural capacity for spiritual perception, meditation, prayer, service, community. And in India, that is done in multiple faith traditions, and it is done with great appreciation. It is done as a normal course of life. Why is India and all the world considered such a spiritual country? It's because it is considered part of who we are to realize our natural spiritual nature.
And this, it's interesting that you talked about who we are, right? So there's eternal quest to understand who we are, and who are we becoming? What's our innate source of how do we live? How do we connect? What's the frequency with which I know I've read some of your works, and it says that at a universal level, we are all connected at the same energy field,
Yes.
right? And I
Yeah.
also find it very interesting that we are eternal seekers in who we are. A very existential question, but perhaps a very pertinent one.
Yes, right. So our natural spiritual awareness, our awakened brain is not a passive,
Mm,
mitt which we catch a ball. This awakened capacity is a hungry, curious,
mm,
front-footed form
mm.
of our human nature, which I call our natural quest. Our lives are a journey, they're a quest, and we are built to be on our front foot, to be seeking. And that includes a nagging of the head. What is the purpose? What is the meaning? Why is this happening to me now? What is the nature of life? And the deep yearning of the heart for ultimate love, for the numinous, for connection. Both the head and the heart seek. This is how we're built. So while we all are given a natural, innate spiritual life, it's part of just we're physical, mental, social beings. We are naturally spiritual beings. Any human capacity that's inborn has a developmental arc. We grow at certain points in our life. We get gray hair at certain points in our life. We have new understanding at different points in our life. We are built with the seeds, like any other living being, for phases and chapters of development. And spirituality has three bridges. There's coming of age in adulthood. What is my purpose? What is my meaning? There's midlife, and I can attest to this. Am I living my meaning? Have I followed the purpose? Am I walking in keeping with the nature of reality? And then there's ascending to elderhood. What is my living spiritual footprint? What is my living impact or legacy on this earth? All three bridges, this booting up, expansion of our hunger and our quest, feel at first often like a half empty glass of spiritual life. What yearning, the existential confusion, the hunger, and sometimes it can be confusing. In much of the world, we confuse that with outward things as opposed to knowing, no, that's an inner growth spurt. First bridge, second bridge, third bridge all need spiritual support. Absolutely. And as coaches, you have an extraordinary opportunity to walk with your clients across the bridges of ascension, across the phases of developmental spiritual expansion, because the spiritual awareness in every client is the core of the whole person. You can simply not attack only from the outside. They need more grit. They need more perseverance. They need more strategic relationships with people. They need more grace. The core will make any efforts made more long-standing and deeper and more rooted, because the core is spiritual awareness, that we are part of the same deep source, the fabric of life, that felt awareness of sisterhood and brotherhood.
Beautifully articulated. And you've referred to professionals as coaches. As coaches in the coaching journey, one of my greatest uh, takeaways of that entire journey is to really realize that coaching is perhaps a very spiritual experience, both as a learner, as I went through the journey, as well as the capacity I have to create this for somebody to be able to, for them to get in touch with the core of who they are. And the interesting part is that sometimes as coaches, these are the questions some of the clients come up with. What's the purpose of my life? And they are at a point where they're crossing these different bridges, as you've said. And it's really about connecting. In my journey as a coach, Dr. Lisa, it's been about really connecting to myself, my inner knowing, my intuition, my whole self, in a way that I can hold space for somebody else and they can connect to their inner self, right? Inner
Oh,
knowing.
yeah, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because as a coach, as a guide, as a healer,
Mhm,
coach, we can bring our clients as far as we have traveled,
mhm,
plus maybe a heel strike further of the mutual growth. But as you say so beautifully, it is the coach, it is the guide whose own expanded spiritual awareness, who awakens their
mhm,
own awareness And I would say, like a picnic blanket sets a field through which is awakened the client. So from a post-material consciousness based view of science, and this is published in our new Oxford University Press Handbook of Psychology and Spirituality. This is rigorous science. It mirrors what you've known in India for thousands of years, which is the foundational nature of reality is sacred consciousness, sacred consciousness. And of course, consciousness can take on the form of matter. It can, but consciousness can exist independent of matter. So Newtonian, physics is a subset of a map of reality. It's real, mechanics is, but why is this relevant? It's highly relevant because as a coach, when you hold sacred consciousness, you're like an antenna. You are bringing in through you a vessel, sacred consciousness that is spread out in and around you and ignites and awakens the awareness of your clients. So, yes, in your words, and yes, in your way of being, but ever more simply in the sacred consciousness that you host, you are awakening your clients. It's an extremely important point that's left out of mechanistic 20th century ideas of healing, ideas of growth, ideas of guidance. I write in The Awakened Brain about very strong studies that show how a coach, a guide, a healer is a conduit of consciousness. May I share such a study?
Yes, please. Please.
Okay. In The Awakened Brain, and here I will grab a copy, and this is here. This is The Awakened Brain. The Awakened Brain. Okay. Penguin Press, a very serious, well documented, referenced book, The Awakened Brain from Penguin. Okay. I reference, you can pull up the scientific references on Google Scholar or Medline. It's all there meticulously for your clients, the references. I'll share such a study. A healer, but you could say coach, guide, is in one MRI. The client or the patient is in the second MRI that's located in an entirely different building. So the coach, the guide, the healer, and the client are very far apart in physical distance. The person of healing and guidance, in this case, a traditional healer, starts to do his or her work. And within instance, in the MRI comes a predictable, consistent pattern, the healing pattern on the MRI. Priya, within an instant, the very same pattern appears on the MRI in an entirely different building of the patient. One thing, the consciousness, the spirit of healing, reflected in the neuro docking station, the tangible material neuro docking station, in two different places, way apart in two different places. Non-locality, you could call it superposition. You could call it the impact of the deeper consciousness in us, through us, and around us. But all of this is how we are made. This is who we are. And I do think that when I speak with people in India, nobody's surprised. I mean, this is what your grandmother and grandfather knew. This is what finally science has caught up to mirror what you were taught as a child. So now that science and deep consciousness practice come hand in hand, where else would this feel so very at home as in India?
Beautiful. So you made a few references and you showed us the book, The Awakened Brain, of Dr. Lisa. So I understand that the way you look at it is that there is an achieving brain that is, going after the goals and is motivated and achieving really. And then there is the awakened brain. Tell us a little more on how we can access this part of our brain. You're on mute.
We are all born with the, what they see in the MRIs. We are all born with the same neurowiring, whether I am Hindu or Muslim or Catholic, Christian or spiritual and not religious. There's one awakened brain in the whole world, 7.2 billion identical awakened brains. Just as we have the same neurocircuitry to see visually or to hear, we are born with the same neurocircuitry to perceive the sacred transcendent reality, the consciousness. This is our birthright. And it must be cultivated because all forms of human neuro birthright must be cultivated. By way of analogy, like a muscle, we must strengthen our awakened brain.
Right.
So how do we do that? For some people, it is deep meditation. For some people, it's prayer. For some people, it is service, which you could say is service is meditation or prayer in action, to really love and care for one another, right action. But whatever our form of authentic, lived spiritual life, we are strengthening the same universal awakened brain. Now, of course, when we strengthen it, there's some variability. And of course, people, like we are diverse in our ability to create music, have some individual difference, but it's the same basic component. This is who we are. So first of all, this makes all religious war completely outdated because there's one spiritual brain. There's one human spirituality on earth. So anything else is not about spirituality, because this is about our universal, what science says, one seat of universal spiritual awareness. Now, what is that seat? What does it look like? Well, there's 4 components. The first, and only the first, is held in common with the helpful secular practice of mindfulness, to simply be present. And when we are simply present, breathe, get present, we disengage the racket of the default mode network. Why did I say that to my boss? Am I going to get in trouble? Will I get the promotion? Will that check clear? Round and round and round. We can disengage the racket and be present. The 3 remaining networks are distinct and true only of our awakened awareness, of our transcendent awareness. And they are the capacity to perceive that love is a mutative force. Love is not just an emotion like happiness. Love is a transformative force. When we love, things truly change locally and non-locally, like the MRI study. Over here, things change. We enter the consciousness field. 2, we shift from knowing in that moment of engaging love, we engage the bonding network. And it's the same bonding network that was engaged when we were children, little babies, in our parents' or grandparents' arms. We perceive and feel and know we're loved and held by the universe, by Hashem, Allah, God, Vishnu, whoever holds us, we are loved and held. 2, we shift from I've got to have it, how am I going to control this, how am I going to get everyone on board, a top-down, narrow dorsal attention, to a bottom-up ventral attention network, which means we are not in radical control, but we are in dialogue with a living world. Instead of how am I going to make this happen, like a bowling alley, I've got to get spotlight attention. I've got to get this to happen. Suddenly, the floodlight comes on and we realize there's a big open door here. How might we have situational awareness to avail ourselves of the abundant generosity of life? From narrow control to a field-based awareness. And many people say the new direction pops, a shift in attention, our awakened attention. So we perceive we are loved and held, and we are guided. We're in dialogue. And finally, loved and held, guided, we are never alone. People show up in our paths today, here, you, Priya, in my life, and hopefully our community here in one another's life, their client's life. We show up as emanations, like rays of the sun, from this great source of life, creation. Again, whatever our words may be, we are able to perceive we are loved and held, guided, and never alone. We're part of one consciousness field, like rays from the sun. Never alone is the capacity to perceive in our parietal that puts in and out hard boundaries. So you are expert, elegant Priya sitting in India, and I am Lisa Miller sitting in New York. And here we are, 2 different GPS coordinates, 2 bio body suits, and part of one family of life, one field of creation. Sisters of the family. So loved and held, guided, never alone. never
Mm.
alone. This is how we're made,
Mm. How
to see this.
beautiful. And yeah. And I'm, when we started off, I was just looking at all the people who were on the chat, and there was different GPs, different coordinates
Beautiful.
from all over, right? So beautiful to know that we are all in many ways one and the same.
It's just beautiful. I so love looking in the chat all over
Yeah.
the world. And just as we're in one Zoom room and one discussion and one series of thoughts, we are literally in one consciousness being.
Mm. Mm.
So we are both local and non-local.
Yeah.
We are both distinct and part of a unitive reality.
Mm. There are
And
some lovely questions.
people get it. Everyone gets it, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now it's important as coaches, as professionals, you in your journey, as you speak and walk from an awakened stance, from an awakened quest, your clients will very quickly awaken, because
Mm.
this is our birthright. This is our nature. This brings us into alignment with the true landscape of reality. And so, of course, we're more whole and fulfilled. Of course, we're more outwardly able to pursue and realize our direction. Of course, we pick goals and values of more inherent worth. This is the nature of reality that we are built to see. And you are
Mm.
helping your clients realize their spiritual eyes. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really it gives, I think it invites me, and I'm for all the coaches who are here, there are some of them who are not coaches, but for all the coaches here, really to say that the more we work on ourselves and our we build this muscle of spiritual practice, I think we are not only touching ourselves, but we are touching everyone around us, whoever we are in touch with, right? Whoever we speak to. And yet, Dr. Lisa, this brings up um, what shall I say, a confusion in my mind. Um, you know, the way the world is at this moment, um, there is a lot of fear. A lot of us are operating out of fear of yesterday, fear of tomorrow, fear of our neighbor. We are so fearful, and this really impacts our mental wellness, our health, in many, many ways. And I've also heard that the other side of fear is faith. Yeah. So I know that you've done a lot of work around. I remember reading somewhere that you see, for example, depression, anxiety, actually as a moment of spiritual awakening. Tell us some more about that work.
Yes, it's beautiful. When we look more closely into the MRI studies and when we look more closely at long term life course studies, what we see is that the very same people to be in an awakened state who say, yes, I am in dialogue with the living, guiding source of all life, again, whatever their word may be, those people for whom that is bedrock and have a strong awakened brain, as shown in our structural MRI studies, those people, if we look back over the past 10 years, we're 250%, 2.5 times more likely to have suffered to arrive into a deep spiritual awareness, whether it was through loss or betrayal or confusion, outward events, trauma, or whether it was from inner events, one of the three bridges, the growth of our spiritual capacity through which we hunger to understand more. They had a developmental depression. A developmental depression is extremely helpful as a coach to give to your client, to say, I understand you're struggling, but this may, see a psychiatrist, get it, see if you're truly medically not well. But in 2 out of 3 cases, it turns out that actually a developmental depression is not a medical depression. It is a hunger, the growth of our spirit, our hardwired body, mind, and soul brain is knocking at the door for an expanded grasp of reality. Developmental depression is the banging at the door for an awakening, for spiritual growth. And we know this through the lens of science, long-term clinical course, as I shared with you, but so too, when we looked at people with a strong awakened brain who had a thick cortex, the cortex is processing power, across the regions of perception, reflection, and orientation, their awakened brain, the parietal, precuneus, and occipital, those people with a strong awakened brain were far more likely to have built an awakened brain through a spiritual inquiry, a spiritual struggle, a spiritual response to developmental depression. And every tradition knows this. Suffering is an invitation to examine the deeper nature of reality, and not just examine by machinating with the head, but to examine by opening the mind, heart, spirit, our awakened capacity to receive and perceive a receptive form through meditation, through prayer, through deep relationship with nature, an expanded aha, the gift of the universe, the gift of God, Hashem, Allah, you use your word, of an expanded awareness, a spiritual response to suffering. And again, in our long-term studies, once a strong awakened brain is formed and practiced over time, in our study, we happen to look over 8 years, the strong cortex across the regions of the awakened brain proves neuroprotective against a subsequent depression down the road. Why? Because it now becomes a go-to seat of being, the ability to look into the world and see and know you are being guided, you are held, you are never alone. Your coach showed up for you and you show up for your client. And you help your client or you in your own path awaken to the synchronicities, the confluence in life, which is way too unprobabilistic to have happened by chance. Priya, may we even do a practice that people can then share?
Please.
Okay, lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is on awakening to the confluences, the synchronicities that the sacred universe, who I call God, lays in our path. You use your word. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. This is a 90-second practice. Take 5 breaths and clear out your inner space. I invite you to locate a time where you wanted something to happen so badly and you did everything right. Strategically and tactically, you researched it. A plus B plus C. You did everything right. You wanted that promotion. You wanted him or her to say yes. You wanted to live in that city. You wanted your child in that school. You wanted that job. And because you did everything right for your big red door, you knew it was yours. Tactically, A plus B plus C, you go up to your red door, grab the handle, but it's stuck. You can't believe it's stuck because A plus B plus C, you had done strategically, researched everything right. You kick the door, you might be frustrated. You might in time be depressed. But only because the red door is stuck, you have no choice. You turn 40, 50, 80, 110 degrees. And over there is a wide open yellow door, a shining open yellow door, leading you, well, to someone who makes you feel alive, to a job where you feel satisfied, to a community where you belong, to a whole new professional direction. You might have said yellow doors don't exist. You've never heard of yellow doors. But on the other side of the yellow door, you feel alive. And it was not what you had wanted. It was better and better for you. And as you sit back now and you think of the stuck red door and the hairpin turn, the U-turn, leading you to the wide open yellow door, Was there anyone standing there at the U-turn? A coach, a counselor, a grandparent, someone you met for 3 minutes, having a cup of tea or at a party? A trail angel pointing you to the yellow door, information, a story from their own life. They may have known, they may not have ever known how they directed you, the trail angel, to the yellow door. And finally, as you sit way back, stuck red door, U-turn, trail angel, and wide open yellow door that has so much to do with where you are and who you are today. How are the most important parts of our lives formed? Is it narrowly through entirely control, radical control? Are we narrowly makers of our path? Or are we more discoverers of our journey? On a great sacred adventure, are we in dialogue with a deeper source in life? Are we awakened to a force in us, through us, and among us? And where is this force? Is the force in the open yellow door and the stuck red door? Is the source in the trail angel and your capacity to be an open system in dialogue with this source? Have you been on a spiritual quest all along? And I invite you back.
I'm also hoping that some of our audiences have also gone through this practice as you've shared. But before I lose what I gained from this exercise is that I think there was a element of searching and quest at some point in my life on where I want to, what I want to do with my life. And at the same time, I think there was a sense of surrender to what was coming my way. And it wasn't being able to, it was not about, I want to be there like this, exactly like this, but there was also a letting go or a surrender to let me see where this goes. Because everything seems to take me away from this red door and it's taking me away. And just that letting go and that surrender has probably helped me to be where I am today. Because this is not what I imagined 20 years back. So just to know that sometimes, I mean, like you said, we are guided, loved and guided by something that's beyond. Perhaps we can put a transactional name or, anything to it. There's something else that's guiding us. And can we just be open to the journey, being discoverers of that journey? Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Beautiful. Yes. And 20 years ago, I didn't think I'd be doing this. I had a view that at the time seemed appealing, but would not speak to me now at all. So, how very fortunate we are that we don't get our red doors, because a red door is based only on information from today backwards. Red doors are entirely historically based, whether it's our parents' aspirations, our aspirations, the society as it was. Red doors are only based on old information. They're immediately outdated. But yellow doors, to which we're guided because of an awakened, inspired guidance, because we listen, we take as real the synchronicities, the trail angels. We take as real the beckoning of the yellow door and act on it. We see a synchronicity and act on it. 3 steps: see it, know it's real and valuable, and act on it. That yellow door opens to information that has yet to unfold before us. Red doors are only historical. Yellow doors lead us to places that we have yet to discover. They have information that has yet to unfold before us. So the high pixel catch of information that comes through our awakened brain is a form of information which far exceeds anything we could spin with our red doors. As a coach, when you help your client see yellow doors, when you help your client notice, take as real, and act on synchronicities, when you help your client listen to trail angels and be a trail angel, you are helping them to participate in an awakened form of living. And it changes life. It radically exponentiates our lives, but also it puts us on our true path. It puts us where we're really meant to be.
Thank you for that, Dr. Lisa. And I'm going to actually invite us to a slightly different trajectory in our conversation to invite you to share your thoughts on what might be the role of spirituality in leadership at workplaces. I know there are a lot of studies being done in examining that. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Spirituality at workplace.
I will tell you that this science lands very well in top businesses. So some banks, some investment funds, places that everyone's heard of have been very open because one, it's told in the language of numbers and science, and people are data driven. People like in investment houses and banks and data driven things. But two, even equally and more importantly, actually, is that we're all naturally spiritual beings. So anyone with whom you work, anyone to whom you speak, anyone's business into whom you whose business you enter has natural spirituality. It has perhaps yet to have been engaged, or maybe they felt, ooh, I just can't talk about it here. I do that at home. But once you hold the flashlight and point the way for how natural awakened awareness can be part of any professional setting, you're shining a light that others are built and equipped to follow. It is not foreign. It's not like you're teaching them a language they've never heard before. You are helping them with what is universal and already in them to engage their core. And very often people will say, you know, I'm a skeptic, I'm a hard, rigorous engineer or scientist. I only take to be real that which my left brain takes as real.
Right.
And science speaks to the left side of my brain long enough that I can be convinced and open up other forms of awareness. In every one of us, there are hardwired biological ways of knowing, what I call innate epistemologies, ways of knowing. We are all logicians. We all have logic. We all have empiricism built into the capacities in our brain. We all have intuition. We all have mystical awareness. And we all have a nice skeptic who deserves to be there too. But these 5 forms of perceiving and reasoning and knowing are built into all of us. Can we get everyone going backwards the other way, the skeptic, the mystic, the intuitive, the empiricist, and the logician working together? And when we do, what we see in our MRI studies is that we literally myelinate the tracks between regions of the brain, pave the highways between multiple ways of knowing, which is a far more perceptive, creative, innovative brain. Yes, much more successful in work. And of course, more importantly, more successful in our spiritual footprint on this earth, how we live our lives, the people around us, our clients, our family, our lived values. And I will say, you know, in India, all forms of knowing are pretty strong still. You haven't, you know, you really do still have all 5 forms of knowing. Can we tell leaders this is a great asset? Science shows, science mirrors. This is an asset. Yes, you will have a company that is more outwardly successful, that makes more money, that has people stay, less attrition, better ethics. People won't steal from you. You know, you'll have a better company, and your company will have better values long term in and of itself to be sustainable and in its outward touch on our society. So who are coaches? Coaches are spiritual leaders. You are. Now, whether you choose to say it or not say it is your choice. But whether through omission or commission, whether we choose to act on it or not, the spiritual clock runs. It's an opportunity of your client's lifetime. It's an opportunity of your lifetime.
Absolutely. I could just go on and on. It's really a wonderful conversation, but I'd like to just take a step back and check in if there's some questions that come from the audience. Um, I'm just,
I love questions, please, and reflections. I love this. I am so eager to know about you and your work and how spirituality has resonated in your path and in your work.
yeah, so I'm going to, read out the question from Neil Mystery. He says, you spoke about three bridges. Could you please say what the third bridge was? I think he missed that.
So, emerging adulthood. If you have, for instance, a child who is a college student, they might come home one day and have had a radical shift in perception. That's hardwired. The first is emerging adulthood. The second is midlife.
Mhm.
The third is the ascension to elderhood.
Mm.
I spoke within the past couple of weeks for a community of about 200 elders who had in their midlife been highly, highly productive people. And there was an awakening that they experienced in ascending to elderhood, where, yes, they cared very much about their outward impact and the capacity to see the deeper spiritual nature of life informed everything that they wanted to do with the next 15 years. Yeah.
Thank you. And Barbara asks, does your book expand on the concept of developmental depression?
Yes, and it's extremely important in our path. Thank you. Developmental depression
Mm.
is the natural human, if you will, ignition. It is the start of a spiritual surge. When we are growing spiritually, when we are body, mind, and soul, a monoist perspective, emerging to inherit the next station of our life, perhaps at midlife, perhaps as elders, we are outgrowing our old way of being. And there's a
Right.
profound feeling of not enoughness. Now, very often, not enoughness is taken as, oh, there's not enough out there. So at midlife, we'll often hear people say, I'm just not successful enough. I'm
Mm.
not where I thought I'd be.
Mm.
My spouse who was perfectly good 5 years ago, she, they're not good enough. I need to get divorced and trade up. My kids aren't performing well enough. If they're honest with you, the not enoughness is attributed to external, other people, job, but the not enoughness, because it was fine 5 years ago, the not enoughness is an inner feeling, an inner perception of not enoughness. And
Mm.
the real question is, from whence comes the not enoughness? It is an emerging sense of my way of being, my seat of perception is no longer enough. What's not enough is my way of feeling and knowing my sacred life, the universe. And the not enoughness is this developmental nagging to expand our view of who we really are in the nature of reality. This happens at midlife, and it is squarely in your work as a coach. It happens again in elderhood, and it got all set up back in emerging adulthood. Three bridges. Developmental depression cannot be skipped. It cannot be medicated away. If someone's in pain, of course, you can take medication to make pain go away, but it will not do the work of the expanded seat of spiritual awareness. It will not awaken our brain. I'll show it again. The awakened brain. Where is my there? The
Yeah.
awakened brain. Okay. That work is potentiated by the start, the ignition, like the start of a car for developmental depression. So depression is not being off the spiritual path. Depression is part of the spiritual path. It is the surge, it is the emergence to beckon us into an examination to expand our practice of meditation, to expand our service, to expand our reflection and reading of wise and sacred text or prayer, whatever our tradition may hold. Again, Hindu, Muslim, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter. We are all born to have three bridges of developmental depression that opens into spiritual awakening if we say yes to it and do the work.
Right. And that's the catchword, if we say yes to it.
Yes.
And my experience is working with the Gen Z, if you may call it, or a lot of work with the leaders. There is this quest for something bigger. It's not, I don't see people working just for I mean, the tactical basic needs, yes. But beyond that, there is a yearning for something bigger. I want to find meaning in my work.
Mhm.
And that is that's the consciousness with which I feel the current generation is operating. And I think it calls for a change in the way that we are engaging with the employees at workplace.
It's an opportunity for
An
us at
opportunity.
to own our own
Yeah.
awakened heart, our own awakened vision that's in all of us, and to authorize us to speak from that place, to make decisions for our companies and our communities from that place. How lovely that we have Gen Z nagging us to say,
Mm.
speak from your awakened heart, because we do have
Yes.
one. Speak from your
Right.
awakened awareness, because it is there.
Yes.
So we can take them as the
Mm.
helpful nags, the helpful confluence. Now, there's a way in which what they're saying has been in our heart all along, that our companies should not just be about bottom line, but about our spiritual footprint, that our leadership needs to think about what's best for every single person in the room,
Mm.
right? And so there's so much that leadership now has to give already in our hearts. Can we authorize ourselves to speak outwardly from that place and, be welcoming? Gen Z is the age of our kids. Yes, 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 you're right. Thank you. I'm so glad you said that. You still have 30 years of experience. That's extremely important.
True that. I'm just looking, perhaps we have time for a quick one more question. And this is something to do with workplace. Yeah. George has asked, what might be some tips on defining how to expose and develop how spirituality can help bridge differences in intergenerational workforce? Yeah. Interesting.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So there are three things that help any organization become an awakened organization. There's actually 12 that we've written about, but there's three that are absolutely essential. From the top down, yes, we talk about that here, a deep spiritual reality. And we do it in a way that is inclusive and pluralistic. So if someone uses their own voice from their own family, whether they are Hindu or Catholic or Muslim or Jewish or spiritual and not religious, it's a form of inclusivity. We welcome you and we talk about that here. There is, yes, an authorization of the awakened voice. Two, there is the welcoming of transcendent practice, whether it is pluralistic or we share some form of quiet, receptive practice, whatever that may be. We talk about that here, and there is a practice that you are welcome to do at the table in your office of transcendent perception. And third, there is a language that is welcomed that is universal. What does your awakened heart say about that? What does your deep inner wisdom say about that?
Mm.
What does your awakened brain perceive about that synchronicity? When we allow awakened awareness and awakened language into the boardroom, the capacity for decision making is much expanded. And I've shared, I
Wow.
can send you perhaps, Priya, with Barron's, with the McKinsey Quarterly, ways in which
Mm.
organizations speak from an awakened, comfortable, welcoming, inclusive point of view. We've worked so hard globally, so hard to be inclusive around race and gender and culture and all this. We need to be inclusive and welcoming around spiritual life and say, yes, some people are profoundly strong with intuition and mystical awareness. And we need their voice at the table. If they had a synchronicity or a dream that said we should not go down this path, let's listen to them. The story I often share was there was a pilot for a large international airlines who received a call
Mhm.
from a highly perceptive person with mystical awareness who, was put through the airlines, put through directly to the pilot, and said, this number on your plane, I had a dream that the plane will crash. And the pilot made a decision to cancel the flight. Of course, there were 400 people on that flight. If someone called you who has mystical awareness and said, your flight is going to go down, wouldn't you listen to them? So mystical awareness, intuition, alongside empiricism and logic are hard forms of knowing, and we need them all together. And when we listen to people, both individually and at the level of group decision making, then we've expanded the capacities of our organization, and we've realized and fulfilled the people at the table as knowers.
I think we are poised and we are sort of ready for working from a awakened space. I think it's a call for action, really, and because just knowing that we have it gives us the impetus to go. Because I'm reminded of the saying that we are spiritual beings on a human journey, not human beings on a spiritual journey. So I think that's really wonderful. And Dr. Lisa, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to stay on for the full session and have this conversation. It's nothing but synchronicity that I get an opportunity to speak with you on behalf of Coacharya. And what a lovely way to set off the International Coaching Week. We have many more conversations to come on various speakers on the topic of spirituality tomorrow, day after. Looking forward to the audience to be there and learn as much as you can. On that note, a very heartfelt thank you and appreciation for your time and your valuable insights.
It's a joy to be in your beautiful, inspired, and impactful international community. This is an awakened community, and I appreciate your sharing the awakened brain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. Thank you, everyone. See you for the subsequent webinars in the coming week. Until then, it's goodbye. Take care. Stay awakened.